She stood at the edge of my ranch lake with her phone pressed to her ear, yelling so loud the birds scattered from the trees. "Yes, officer, he's trespassing. He's not allowed to sell this land," she screamed, pointing at me like she had caught a criminal. The crazy part? I was standing on my own property, a piece of land my father worked on for decades. I could feel my blood boiling, but I stayed still, letting her dig her own hole. When the squad car pulled up, she rushed toward them, waving papers in the air like some self-appointed sheriff. "Arrest him! He forged this property listing," she barked. The officer looked confused, flipping through the so-called documents she shoved at him. I knew exactly what she was holding, fake HOA letters with a fake stamp. She had taped one of those notices to my door last week, telling me I wasn't allowed to own community land anymore. But here's the part she didn't know. My deed didn't just include the lake. It included a narrow strip of road that her property relied on for access. Every single time she drove in or out, she passed over my land. I glanced at the officer and simply said, "You might want to check county records before you put cuffs on the wrong person." The look on Karen's face cracked for a second, but she quickly covered it with a smirk, convinced she was untouchable. I smiled back, but not the friendly kind. More like the kind that said, "Lady, you just declared war on the wrong man." The officer stepped aside and radioed dispatch, checking the parcel records while Karen paced in circles, huffing like she owned the whole town. "Don't waste time, officer." "He's a liar. This lake belongs to the association, not him," she barked, her finger trembling as she pointed at my boots. I leaned on the fence post, calm, almost too calm, and that seemed to rattle her more. Within minutes, the radio crackled back. The officer's brow lifted. "Ma'am, it says here this lake and the surrounding road are under his name, not the HOA. For a moment, silence. Karen's face drained, then flushed bright red. She fumbled the papers, trying to talk over the officer. That's a mistake. The HOA president promised me." Her voice cracked, and that's when she snapped. She marched right into my yard, tearing down the for sale sign I had placed by the lake. "You're not selling this." "Not while I live here," she shouted, throwing the board into the dirt. The officer warned her to step back, but she ignored him, storming right toward my porch like she was about to rip down my front door next. My little girl peeked through the window, scared, clutching her teddy bear, and that was the last straw for me. I pulled out a file folder I had been holding on to for weeks. County survey maps, deeds, and something Karen never saw coming, a pending purchase agreement. I had already been negotiating with a neighbor, and just yesterday the deal closed. Not only did I own the lake and road, but now I owned the empty lot right next to hers. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Funny thing, Karen, you'll need my permission every time you back your car out of your driveway." Her jaw dropped, her anger folding into something closer to fear. The officer glanced at her, then at me, realizing exactly what kind of power shift just happened. Karen wasn't the one in control anymore, and she knew it. Karen froze on my porch, her lips quivering but no sound coming out. For the first time, she didn't have a quick insult or a fake rule to throw at me. The officer gave her a sharp look, and I could almost hear her mind spinning, trying to figure out how to claw her way back into control. She finally spat out, "You can't do that! This neighborhood has rights!" Her voice cracked, thinner than usual, like even she didn't believe her own words. I stepped down slowly, folder in hand, and spread the papers out on the hood of the squad car. "See this?" I pointed at the map, tracing my finger along the shaded area. "This is your driveway. And this narrow strip of land right here, mine, bought yesterday. Which means every time you drive out, you cross my property." I looked right at her. "And I don't owe you a thing." The officer leaned in closer, studying the documents, then nodded. "He's right, ma'am. These are legal county filings. You're standing on his land right now." Karen's chest rose and fell like she was about to explode. But instead she laughed. Not the kind of laugh you share with friends, the broken, unhinged kind. "Fine," she hissed. "Then I'll build my own access road." "I'll have the HOA fund it." She stormed off toward her lot, muttering under her breath. I didn't move. I just watched her, calm, because I already knew what she didn't. There was no room to build another road. The land behind her lot? Owned by the same neighbor I had just bought from. And guess what? He had given me first right of refusal if anyone else came knocking. Minutes later, Karen stomped back with her phone on speaker, yelling at the so-called HOA president. "Tell him! Tell this fraud he can't block me. The voice on the line sounded nervous, stumbling through half-baked threats. Well, technically the HOA has jurisdiction over shared amenities. I cut him off with a laugh. Funny, because this isn't a shared amenity. It's private land, my land, and if you keep pushing, I'll have both of you in court for harassment and fraud. The officer gave a low whistle, stepping back toward his car. Ma'am, if you don't leave now, I'll have to cite you for trespassing. Karen looked like she wanted to scream, but her own supposed ally had already hung up on her. She stood there, shaking, and for the first time in weeks, she realized the walls were closing in on her. I bent down, picked up the torn for sale sign from the dirt, brushed it off, and planted it right back in the ground by the lake. This is my land, I said quietly but firm. And if you try to touch it again, you'll find out just how far the law is on my side. Karen's eyes darted between me, the officer, and the sign, like she was cornered with nowhere to go, and in truth she was. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of engines rumbling outside. When I stepped onto my porch, Karen was standing in the middle of the road with 2 trucks behind. Her contractors. She had clearly hired overnight. She was waving her arms, barking orders like she was some kind of general. Dig right here! We're building a new access lane. He can't stop us! She shouted, pointing toward the strip of dirt that ran across my newly purchased lot. My jaw tightened, but instead of rushing down, I quietly pulled out my phone and started recording. The workers hesitated as soon as I approached. Gentlemen, I said, calm but sharp, before you put a single shovel in the ground, you should know, this land belongs to me. I can have you charged with trespassing and destruction of property. They exchanged uneasy glances, one of them already shutting off his engine. Karen's voice cracked into a shriek. Don't listen to him. He's lying. I'm the HOA board member. She waved her fake notices again like they were holy scripture. That's when I pulled out the deed and held it up. This isn't a notice. This is the law. You dig, you get arrested. Almost on cue, 2 sheriff deputies rolled up. Real law enforcement this time, not the ones Karen had tried to fake call before. I had already sent them my recordings, along with copies of the forged HOA letters she plastered on my door. The deputy stepped out, stone-faced. Ma'am, we've had multiple complaints about you impersonating HOA authority and attempting to enforce fake property rules. We need to talk. Karen froze, her mouth opening but no words coming out. I turned my camera toward her, my voice steady. Karen, yesterday you tried to have me arrested on my own land. Today you tried to steal it. But now, it's your turn to answer. The contractors packed up fast, not wanting any part of it, while the deputies started questioning her. She stammered, pointing at me, then at the lake. But every excuse only dug her deeper. You don't understand? The HOA president, he told me I could... One deputy cut her off. Ma'am, the county doesn't recognize any of that. You crossed a line. As they escorted her toward the cruiser, neighbors started gathering. Phones were out, whispers flying. For months, she had bullied everyone with her fake rules and empty threats. Now the whole street watched her being led away, red-faced and humiliated. My daughter peeked out again from the window, this time smiling when she saw Karen being put in the back seat. I walked to the edge of my lake, the sun reflecting on the water, and planted a second sign. Not for sale this time. But private property, owner has full rights. I turned back to the crowd and said, loud enough for every camera to catch it. I didn't fight for this land, just to let someone like her take it. Not today, not ever. The neighbors clapped. Some even laughed with relief. And in that moment, Karen's reign of fake power was over. Justice had a way of coming slow, but when it landed hard. And this time, it was on my side.